Welcome back to CKLA Chats. I am DLC Foster-Yankey, and in this video, we're going to be chatting about Lesson 8, a closer look at revolutionary thinking in 5th grade, Unit 6, which is all about the Reformation. So the core text for this lesson is what is at the center of the universe. Students read this text in the previous lesson, and they're going to be rereading it here to closely examine the author's words, sentences, and literary devices for a deeper understanding of what is at the center of the universe. Well, the first component of this lesson is reading. The cub is students will know the definition of an idiom. They will understand that the author's use of specific words, phrases, and devices describe the relationships between Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, and the church. And they will be able to show comprehension of chapter 5 by explaining the details the author uses to describe the relationships among Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, and the church. So reading is divided into 3 subcomponents. There is a whole group close reading of chapter 5 for 35 minutes, a 5-minute wrap-up with a partner, and 5 minutes of word work, also with a partner, for the word contemporary. So for the close reading, the class will begin by reviewing the answers to activity page 7.3, which was assigned for homework in the previous lesson. Afterwards, the teacher will tell students that they will reread parts of chapter 5 to examine how the author uses certain words, phrases, and devices to describe the relationships between Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, and the church during the Reformation. Students will use a table of contents to find the chapter. A volunteer will read the big question, which is the same as it was in the previous lesson, and the teacher will remind students what it's asking. The title of the chapter will be read as a class. Next, the students will read specific sections of the text, and then the teacher will follow up by asking a question. And that will continue throughout the chapter. For example, on this page, a student reads the second paragraph on page 46 aloud, and the teacher asks inferential and literal questions. Here, a student will read page 47 aloud, and the teacher will follow up by asking this inferential question. Then a student will read page 48 aloud, and the teacher will ask inferential and evaluative questions. A student will read the first paragraph on page 49 aloud, and the teacher will ask an inferential question. A student reads the second paragraph on page 50 aloud, and the teacher asks an inferential question. Another student will read aloud the last paragraph at the bottom of page 50, continuing to the end of the first full paragraph on page 51, and the teacher will ask an evaluative question. Then a student will read page 53 aloud, and the teacher will ask inferential and evaluative questions. For the 5-minute wrap-up, students will think pair share to answer these questions, and then several pairs will share out their answers. Then they will move on to 5 minutes of word work for the word contemporary. As usual, the teacher will use the word in context using a sentence from the reader, then have students repeat the word, give them the definition, a sample sentence, and ask for examples of times when students contradicted something. That is the wrong example. So they will not ask for examples of times students contradicted things. They will ask for the part of speech and follow up with a discussion activity. The prompt is: you recently read about many people who were important in Europe during the Renaissance. With your partner, discuss the contributions made by these people who were contemporaries of one another. Be sure to use the word contemporary in complete sentences as you discuss with your partner. So after word work, they'll move on to writing, which is divided into 2 subcomponents. They'll spend 40 minutes working on their slide presentations in small groups or with a partner, and then come back together for 5 minutes to wrap up whole group. So the teacher will begin writing by reviewing activity page 7.4 and discussing any overarching problems or successes noticed. They'll ask students how slide presentations are similar to essays and clarify that they use thesis or themes and topic sentences to structure the main ideas clearly and logically. Similarly, a slide presentation uses an introduction slide similar to a thesis statement and slide titles similar to topic sentences to organize information. The teacher will remind students that the slides they created should be organized by theme and sequence and explain that the introduction slide announces the thesis or main theme. The theme also refers to the subject or topic on each slide, and that all slides should relate clearly to the introduction slide. They will continue by explaining that the conclusion slide summarizes the main theme again in a slightly different way and provides one final thought. And finally, that sequence refers to the overall structure of the presentation and the material on each slide. So as a check for understanding, the teacher will display the sample slide presentation again and have students raise their hands to identify each part: the introduction slide, body slides, conclusion slide, thesis/theme, the titles/topic sentences or questions, answers and bullets/phrases, and the images. They'll clarify any confusion about how these parts work together. Then students will create their introduction and conclusion slides using the same format they use to create their body slides. Okay, so either on paper or digital. Students will read the introduction section in the exemplary column, and the teacher will explain that these are the goals they should keep in mind when creating their slides. The teacher will tell students that, like an essay, the introduction slide should have a catchy title that sums up the main theme of the presentation. They'll note that the introduction slide will not have bullet points like the body slides they worked on in the previous lesson. The teacher will also tell students that they will create a conclusion slide as well and remind them that the conclusion should contain a memorable fact, image, or observation. So students will work in small groups to create the titles and text for their introduction and conclusion slides using activity page 7.4. They will read their introduction slides to a partner within the group, and the partner will try to guess what the body slides will discuss. The teacher tells students if their partner guessed correctly, that means they have likely created an organized presentation so far. And if their partner guessed incorrectly, they may wish to revise the introduction slide to more clearly reflect what is discussed in the body slides. Students refer to activity page SR.2 for guidelines on choosing images that contribute to the meaning of the text. The teacher will direct students' attentions to the sample slide presentation to illustrate how the images support and add to the ideas presented in the text. The teacher should have gathered images for students to use in their slides in advance. In the advanced preparation, it mentions preparing an image bank for students to use for their slide presentations and saving them in a folder where students can access them. If they're working on paper, the teacher should print copies of the images for them to use and explain to students how and where they found the images. So using the image bank provided, students choose one image for each slide, and the teacher reminds them that the images should match or complement the text on the slide. If they're creating their presentation on the computer, so they're just basically copying and pasting those into their slide. And on paper, they are cutting and gluing the images onto the activity page. If time permits, they can choose more than one image per slide. And while they work, the teacher should be circulating among the students guiding and supporting them with their image choices, and showing them how to insert the images into these slides if necessary, if they're working digitally. If students are struggling to find images, the teacher can allow them to use the ones found in the sample presentation. And as a challenge, they can be required to include several images for each slide or create additional topic/body slides. The teacher will collect the completed slide presentations to evaluate using the rubric and slide presentation editing checklist. To wrap up, a few students will share their slide presentations with the class. Other students can present later as time allows, or alternately, the teacher might have students record themselves presenting. They can share the slide presentation editing checklist and have students edit their own work before submitting. And that concludes the video about Lesson 8. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.